Good morning. We have a quite agenda-packed webinar for you here today. Um, nice to meet you all. I am Masao Ashteen. I'm a Senior Manager in the Energy Transition team at the Carbon Trust, and we're working with the Innovate UK team to bring you some of the challenges that we're looking at in round 5 for the SIF program. So next slide, please. And on this one, we are particularly looking at how we get a whole system optimization, what is needed across different vectors to sort of achieve the decarbonisation goals that we're looking at. I'll be joined by Joe, who is from the Innovate UK, and he is going to give you an overview of the SIF program, as well as sort of an introduction and a challenge. What do we mean by whole system optimization? And then we're going to get into an introduction from the NISO Innovation Strategy team. So we're joined by Simon and Archie, who are going to give us an overview there. And we're going to jump into 3 case study spotlights. So we have Megan, who will be giving us a case study from NISO as well. We have Ellie at National Gas and Sarah from UKPN. At the end, then, we're going to get into a Q&A, give you the opportunity to ask the questions. We ask everyone to place the questions in the Q&A tab at the top of the Teams webinar. You will see that when we do eventually share a link to Slido, for the problem statement identification, there is a little bit of a wording there that says Q&A. Please do not put any of your questions to the panelists there. All questions should be placed in the Q&A panel here, as well as not in the chat. It would be good for you to get your questions across, and we'll field it and put it to the panelists then. For the problem statement identification, we're going to spend some time towards the end where we share the Slido. We're going to share it now in a second as well, so that you get an early start on it. But this is where we want to see, from your perspective, if we're looking at gas, we're looking at heating, transport, and electrification, what are some of the key focal areas where you think innovation needs to happen as it pertains to whole system optimization? So then we're going to then get into the next steps in the SIF ideation, primarily focusing on the last workshop where we'll be running on whole system optimization. So the next slide, please. So if you would like, you can click as well as you can scan the code here. We also have the code at the bottom for joining on Slido. It would be great if you have that loaded on the side, and then as the speakers start going through, or even from now, if you have some sort of general idea of the focal areas where you think that we should be looking at across different vectors, you can start populating that. What we use this for is that we then fill these out of the webinar into the workshop for actual discussions in breakout rooms in the workshop to really drill down on what are some innovation ideas that can start coming out in this space. So feel free to scan that, have it loaded. The question that you're going to see is what problems require innovative whole system and multi-vector approaches to support decarbonisation. It is broad, but focusing on the vectors where we're looking at gas, electricity, heating, transport. And those will be the key areas where we would like to get your understanding of where innovation is needed from a public funding perspective. We're not looking for places or areas where there's a lot of work already happening or things are well underway to meeting net zero. We want the sort of tricky bits, the bits that need a little bit of a push, a bit of de-risking, and a little bit more commercialization. So with that, I'm just going to pass it over to Joe, who's going to give us the introduction to SIF.
Thanks very much, Masao. So as mentioned, I'm Joe Davidson, one of the Energy Systems Innovation Leads on the SIF team at Innovate UK. I'll give you a quick overview of the SIF as a fund, the challenges that we launched earlier this year as part of round 5, and also a bit more on this specific challenge of whole system optimization. So next slide, please. The Strategic Innovation Fund, very quickly on what it is. We've used some of these slides in previous webinars, so I'll not dwell too much, but the Strategic Innovation Fund is a major energy network innovation programme with £450 million available over 2021 to 2026, paid for by consumers on their energy bills. And it is here to drive innovation and benefit to network users and consumers. On the side, you can see some key stats. We funded well over 260 projects as part of the fund back from round 1. Over £240 million of the funding has been allocated, with over £50 million in additional contributions from partners. Over 300 different organisations have had funding through the SIF, and we have provided support to over 100 SMEs to engage with the fund and the energy networks. Now on the left, you can see some early indication of benefits from the fund, where the projects are moving through discovery, alpha, and then into beta demonstrator stages, where we've now got over 20 beta demonstrators live, with more coming through the pipeline. I can have next slide, please. As a fund, we have announced annual innovation challenges from round 1 to round 5, and round 5 of which we announced earlier this year in March. And a bit of a different approach from previous rounds, where this year we announced 7 challenges, which you can see on the slide here, and also lengthened the window for applications into these. So these round 5 challenges run until the end of 2026, allowing for longer term direction and hopefully more innovation projects to come through under these challenges. Of the 7 on the slide, we're focusing today on number 7, whole system optimization. So this is looking at cross-vector, multi-vector approaches to enable whole system benefit. So I'll chat a bit more about the slide, but the challenge document linked in the slide here is a great resource to look at if you're interested in this challenge or any of the others as part of round 5. Next slide, please. So challenge 7, as I mentioned, is on whole system optimization. So I'll give you a bit of an overview of where this challenge has come about, and in particular what we're looking for in terms of projects to come through the fund. So challenge 7 is in the context of the GB energy system targeting net zero and looking at a number of different vectors and sectors looking to decarbonise. Sam mentioned heating, transport, industry, and the need for optimisation and whole systems thinking for the most efficient decarbonisation pathways across these vectors, and breaking down some of that siloed approaches that can prevent some of these benefits being unlocked. So the growing interdependencies between vectors means there's a need for more sophisticated frameworks to think about how different energy flows interact, how we can ensure a more coordinated approach. And in addition, thinking about the gas network being of critical importance to the energy system, the future role of the gas network, and think about optimisation across electricity, gas, and then with other sectors that are looking at decarbonising. Why now? So we'll be hearing from NISO shortly in the sort of whole systems role of their remit. We'll also be thinking about, in terms of this challenge, as other sectors decarbonise, it's a really great time to think about how we can enable those cost savings, leverage the benefits of that decarbonisation, and think in a more holistic view, and also think about that future configuration operation of the gas network. Next slide, please. In terms of the challenge specifically, so in our challenge document, we outline a number of specific scopes that a project under the SIF must address to be eligible under a challenge. Under this challenge 7, there are 2 specific scopes. The first one is on whole system modelling and scenario analysis. So this is looking at advanced modelling tools for optimising across vectors and thinking about future gas grid roles, infrastructure needs, and long-term decarbonisation pathways. And the second scope is on high-impact multi-vector demonstrators and configurations. Now, this is quite broad and, as mentioned, covers vectors in transport, heating, industry, and collaboration across gas and electricity. So interested to see what ideas come through here in terms of demonstrators in real world that potentially could come through the SIF pipeline here. Just a note on the slide, you can also see the partnership requirements across Discovery and Alpha, where there are stipulations on these as set out in the challenge document across all the challenges. For this whole system optimization one, there is a requirement for NISO to be involved as a partner in Discovery and Alpha. And just to note, this is projects do not need to be led by NISO under this challenge. They can be led by also the electricity and gas distribution transmission networks, as well can lead projects. Just NISO needs to be involved as a partner in Discovery and Alpha. So it's not a leadership of the project requirement. And we anticipate to see projects, some of which you'll hear case studies of, examples where gas electricity networks are leading whole system optimization case study projects from both the SIF and wider portfolio. Any questions on challenge document, do put them in the Q&A and we'll pick them up at the end. And as I said, the challenge document is a great resource to look for some greater context on the challenge, some international case studies, and other learning that you can build upon under the challenge. If I can have next slide, please. And I have got the pleasure to hand over to Simon Briggs and Archie Crawlis from NISO, who'll give you a bit of an overview on their role as NISO, their thinking on innovation, and some of the priority areas that they're looking to address. So over to Simon Briggs.
That's great. Thank you. So yeah, hi everybody. My name's Simon Briggs. I'm in the innovation team within NISO. And my role is around innovation strategy and also looking at sort of future technology and future insights as well. If we go to the next slide, please. And again, sorry. So yeah, well, I'll bring in Archie shortly. So I guess in terms of like what we're just planning to cover, there's kind of a couple of things. So just wanted to outline a little bit in terms of what our innovation strategy is. So we've just recently published our whole systems innovation strategy around about the end of July. So it would have been available from early August. And that covers a little bit of our thinking in terms of where NISO are headed, both in terms of our new roles. You know, we're a relatively new organization that's only been sort of established just under a year now. So there's, I think, some context there about how our role is changing and how that relates to sort of our place in the innovation sort of ecosystem generally. But then Archie's going to cover some stuff more specifically around, related to the whole systems challenge, some of the stuff we're already working on and the areas we're probably going to be most interested in. Right, next slide. And again, sorry. So yeah, so starting point from our side is sort of our innovation strategy. So I say just released recently, and that's taking a slightly different tone to what we usually do. So as National Grid and ESO, what we would have done was primarily focused on what we as a system operator needed to do and where innovation is required to support us. What we've done this year is trying to take a broader view and try and take a more whole systems view of not just what NISO needs to do, but where we think there's sort of greater coordination and collaboration required across the industry. And what this strategy document is looking at alongside that is, Clean Power 2030 was a major thing that was done last year to try and drive towards a clean power system within the next 5 years. And innovation has a part to play in that as well. I know SIF is usually aimed in terms of much longer term challenges, but our interest is making sure that a lot of the great research, a lot of the great innovation that's already happening can deliver at scale and can help support some of the shorter term targets that are out there. So what we're saying within the strategy is, there's a mix of things that we need to really be considering about adopting and scaling innovation at pace that can help us meet the clean power target, but also having that forward view about what's required beyond 2030 and enabling sort of research to happen that can help us put us in a good platform for the next 5 years. And that's really where the crossover with SIF comes from, is about, what is it the things we need to be thinking about now that will ultimately put us in a better place once we've achieved a clean power system. Moving on. So we've got 6 priorities that we've identified. I say this is slightly different to SIF challenge area, so I don't want to confuse you too much. And all of this is available online to sort of look at. But yeah, in terms of where our interests lie within NISO and where we think greater coordination is required, certainly around demand side flex. So there is a big target on consumer-led flex within the Clean Power Action Plan. And that's an area that we're really interested in. Things around optimizing network capacity. So we've got a very firm sort of part to play or sort of plan in place around what infrastructure is required over the next 5 years. So I think there's where innovation helps is trying to make the most of the infrastructure that's already out there and how do you drive greater efficiency within existing network assets. Third one is around customer energy efficiency and decarbonisation. So the less demand we have on the system, the easier it is to get to a clean power system. So how we as a group help try and enable that to happen, encourage sort of greater adoption of low carbon technology, drive greater energy efficiency, and yeah, ultimately get a better picture in terms of how that can deliver. It feels like an important thing. I'll leave whole systems integration to last because that's sort of why we're here today. The other sort of 2 big ones from our perspective is system security and resilience. So moving to low carbon technology on the grids, changing climate, greater adoption of digital and AI means there's a whole raft of sort of new cybersecurity threats, new sort of resilience sort of issues to think about within the future network. So again, a big area of interest for us in terms of where innovation can support that. And the last round around digitalization and AI is, modernization of the system as a whole is a big thing. So improving the data that's available, improving how you collect it, improving how you share it, and then utilizing AI to improve how we plan, but also how we operate the system is just a given, really. So how we accelerate sort of work in that space is a big thing for us. So that's on the priorities. There's also sort of the black ring outside of that, which is more around enablers. So we've kind of identified a few areas where we think, okay, they're not definitively sort of where our priorities lie, but things like skills and capabilities and the skills gap, things like how just innovation culture generally within the sector are sort of big important things that can help us deliver innovation, help deliver some of the targets that need to be achieved in the near future. So next slide. So whole systems integration. So I say we've already had an intro to that in terms of what the SIF challenge is. What we ultimately want to do, I guess, is give a picture of what NESO's view of that is and where our interests lie. So within the innovation strategy itself, there's kind of really two key areas that we've identified for most of interest. And I think whole systems is about two things. I think it's about multi-vector is one aspect of that. So how, as we move to clean power, as we move to net zero, how do you get a more integrated view of an integrated use of different vectors to help you achieve those targets? So it's starting to think about how those different vectors come together, what those different solutions might look like, and ultimately how do we as system operator and a strategic energy planner react or adapt to those changing solutions. The other aspect that I would say that we call out is around a planning perspective. So not only do you have breadth in terms of whole systems, but whole systems is also about depth. So we as NESO have that role, I guess, from a top-down perspective around strategic energy planning, but that integration at a transmission, distribution, and even at a customer level or regional level becomes more and more important. So how do you get those sort of different levels to plan and operate sort of more effectively over time as sort of the system is dynamically changing? Next slide. And I say we can share this stuff in more detail. There's say all available online, but that sort of calls out, there are some specific challenge areas within there that, both in terms of creating multi-vector solutions or understanding the impact of multi-vector solutions is one area we'll definitely want to be looking at in more detail. That could be around hydrogen, that could be around biomethane and green gas, that can be around carbon capture and storage. There's a whole aspect of sort of these integration of these vectors that are happening that we need to take account of and understand better. And then from the integration perspective, I say that's much more about how can we use digital solutions? How can we use AI to help improve the way that we forecast and plan across the system? Next slide. So yeah, hopefully the slides will be available. I say the link to the strategies there and contact details for the team involved from a strategy perspective are there as well if you've got any details specifically on that. But yeah, I'll hand over to Archie now. We'll cover a little bit more in terms of like what NESO is already doing in this space.
Great. Thanks a lot, Simon. Hi, I'm Archie Corliss, Whole Energy Network Manager in our Gas and Whole Energy Network Development team. So I work across some of our strategic energy planning areas. So here I'm just going to talk you through a little bit around what some of the work we're doing is, particularly some of the new areas where we're developing things and how we are trying to bring together energy network planning across gas and electricity, but also in new areas such as hydrogen and how those interact. And I suppose highlight the importance of some of these interactions and the areas where we'd be really keen to get further support and development. So just highlight very briefly, these are NESO's main activities highlighted on this slide. So I'm going to focus in the one that's largest in the top left, strategic energy planning here today. But just to highlight, obviously we have a range of things on an operational basis, particularly for electricity, but through to the more whole energy areas across things like resilience, security of supply, markets, developing energy insights, and then strategic energy planning that I'll focus on here, looking at how we understand what networks we are going to need into the future and what the optimal development of those networks looks like, so that we are delivering the most cost-effective outcome for the consumer across the range of energy networks that we will need in future. So on to the next slide, just going to highlight briefly our major sort of strategic energy plans here. So apologies that we always focus on acronyms. So here we've got the Spatial Strategic Energy Plan, or the SSEP, the Centralized Strategic Network Plan, or CSNP, and thirdly, the Regional Energy Strategic Plan, or RESP, which is actually 11 separate plans, one for each of the 11 RESP regions across GB. And so I'll talk you through a little bit more about what each of these involve and how they interact. So on the next slide, you can see a little bit around some of these interactions. So the idea is that these separate plans do need to be aligned. And so I can go through sort of the remit of each of them. But broadly, the SSEP has been commissioned for NESO to deliver, being commissioned by government. So that this is what's going to assess both the development of hydrogen and electricity production and where these supply sources are likely to emerge, and evaluate the capacity of regions and nations to host different energy infrastructure across GB. So explore the need for growing GB's electricity network, but also how extensive a hydrogen network may need to be. The CSNP is the plan that will show how electricity, gas and hydrogen will flow on the system as the profile of supply and demand across these vectors changes in the future, and therefore will tell us with more precision the network that needs to be built across GB to support these energy flows. And the SSEP is the major driver behind the CSNP. RESPs will work with local stakeholders, governments, devolved administrations to build a ground-up view of the future that is compatible with the top-down national strategic plans, so that we can ensure that local networks are also fit for our decarbonised future. And these plans are all supplemented by the wider future energy scenarios, or FES for short, which shows energy pathways to meet decarbonisation into the future out to 2050, but it also provides additional detail, in particular for gas network planning, as it indicates the potential change in national gas flows that need to be accommodated over the next 25 years. These documents are dependent on one another, and they run in 3-year planning cycles. There are other sort of supporting functions across many other details of the system, especially for electricity, where we're also responsible for operating the physical system and many of its markets. So on the next slide, just go into a little bit on the SSEP. So here we are really evaluating this view of what and where we need to develop in energy resources as supply and infrastructure, trying to optimize these across the different zonal locations across the country. So we've got 17 different zones that are being modelled within the SSEP in terms of economic modelling zones, trying to understand the optimal combination of infrastructure and supply for all of these different technology types, and look out between 2030 and 2050 to deliver an overall spatial blueprint that we can then refine in a little bit more detail as part of the CSNP. So on to the next slide, the whole system CSNP. So this is, as I said, sort of underpinned by the SSEP that will be driving the specific sort of network needs that are explored here. So for electricity and gas, this focuses on transmission level deployment and understanding of electricity and gas networks. For hydrogen, obviously, there's no existing national or sort of even small-scale hydrogen networks to build on, other than some isolated, quite specific private examples. And so on this basis, there's no sort of clear transmission distribution split for hydrogen. So the scope is a little broader there. So trying to include all strategic scale infrastructure that could be considered. But the idea behind the CSMP is that building on the outputs of the SSEP, we can understand specifically what the network infrastructure that is needed, and then ensure that this is coordinated across electricity, across gas, across hydrogen, and we're understanding the implications of decisions such as repurposing of elements of the gas network, what impact removing those assets from the gas network would have on meeting gas demands, and also to ensure that we're able to develop the most cost-effective approach to, for example, a new hydrogen network where that is needed, exploring those combinations across repurposed or new build infrastructure, and how that fits in with that development of new electricity infrastructure alongside of this. And so we know that the electricity network will need to continue to expand to support increases in power flows. The gas network challenge is a little different. So we know the use of the network will change, and there will be things like repurposing that will need to be considered, and that demands across some sectors are going to decline over time. And the hydrogen network is obviously an emerging phenomena where we're still evaluating some of the specific use cases and trying to understand the volume of hydrogen that we are going to need in the future. But ultimately, we need to support efficient delivery of different energy networks across the whole system and plan effectively to support the right investment decisions. So across the bottom here, you can see the overall steps that are involved within the CSMP. So the drive step is sort of the data that's being fed in to support this. So as I mentioned, this is primarily being driven by the SSEP, but complemented by the future energy scenarios to understand the future network needs. The identify step is then using that information to provide a view of the current capability and the future needs of the networks to inform the network's options development stage. So then for each energy vector, we're then opening up to incumbents and third parties to develop options that could meet the new network needs that we have identified. And then we're looking at then appraising those options. So trying to assess what is the best combination of options that across each of the different energy vectors that can deliver the most cost-effective outcome for consumers. We'll need to assess these across a range of assessment criteria and include assessment of things like environmental factors when understanding what the best combination of network infrastructure is. And then onto the next slide, just to pick up briefly on the regional energy strategic plans. So this is, as I mentioned, is sort of a bottom-up view. It's focused particularly on gas and electricity distribution networks, but it's a set of outputs that can be developed through quite a substantial range of local engagement with local actors, including local authorities, but also network owners, specific local stakeholders, and really trying to get an understanding of different regions' priorities and the infrastructure that is going to be needed to support that, but also ensure that each of these 11 regional plans is going to be consistent with that national view developed through the SSEP and the CSMP. So the RESPs are being delivered. At the moment, we're focusing on the transitional RESPs. There's a range of work being done to support the delivery of the ED3 price control development through the electricity distribution networks. That's trying to deliver an interim output on the short term to develop there and ensure that we can offer the most support to DNOs in this area. But beyond that, we are developing the methodology for our longer term full regional plans that are being developed. And so there's a range of engagement going on at the moment in terms of developing that methodology and ensuring that that is going to meet the needs of all the stakeholders across the system. So the RESPs are going to be trying to really consider a range of whole system issues. So as I said, there's that joined up approach between national, regional and local levels, but also RESPs are trying to consider as broad a range as possible at that sort of local level. So across electricity and gas distribution networks in particular, but also evaluating the local impact of things like heat networks and the future role of hydrogen networks in different areas to ensure that that local interaction can really entirely be captured. And we've got the right combination of local networks to meet local needs. And so this way we can ensure that investment can be targeted where it's needed, and we can accelerate the progress to net zero and avoid any specific local blockers that could be in place that might delay us on that journey. So that's been a whistle-stop tour of all of these plans. There's a whole range of information available on our website, but I guess the thing I want to emphasize is that NESO is trying to do a substantial amount of work in this area to ensure that our plans are coordinated, but we are really keen to hear from stakeholders around ways that this could be accelerated or developed further. And so, yeah, really keen to work with you and get involved in appropriate innovation projects that could add value to the whole system approach. And this is an area where we are developing a lot of things for the first time, and where there will be a need for testing new approaches and either modelling approaches or evaluation of different factors that haven't yet been considered. So this is an area where we are really keen to get involved and support innovation projects in this area.
Thanks so much, Simon and Archie. It is absolutely clear that there's a lot of work going on. Don't envy you. There's a lot to do, and bringing the system together is no small task. So thank you for sharing those insights and all the details that we can all dive into to sort of accelerate our transition. So next slide, please. I think we're going to go again. Next slide, please. I think we're back to you, possibly, Simon?
No, I don't think so.
Just 1 second.
These ones are still for Archie to run through.
Archie's last couple of slides.
Sorry, Archie, you're not off the hook just yet.
Apologies.
No worries.
So yeah, I guess just wanted to highlight here a little bit just around the sort of areas that we are really interested in. So we've talked through a range of the plans and the work that we have ongoing, but the areas that we are really keen to get ideas and develop further are really novel approaches for whole system modelling. So while we're developing a lot of things in these areas, and we're using some of our economic optimisation tools and so on, there's a range of areas that we're really keen to see further work on. And so highlight a few of these here. I think things like repurposing and decommissioning are things that we haven't seen huge amounts of work go into, and there's quite a lot of uncertainty around things like costs or the potential for the development of these approaches across different vectors, and to what extent we might be able to repurpose different elements of the network. And so we're not trying to rule things out at this stage, but we're keen to make sure that, I guess, submissions that we're able to see and support are things that add value beyond what is business as usual, and some things that we've highlighted already. So on the next slide, can highlight, I suppose, yes, in terms of what I've talked about previously, we have an economic modelling approach, and we're trying to ensure that across different energy vectors we are minimising overall system cost and building out the right infrastructure in the right place. And this is an area where there is sort of quite a lot of work that's gone on to support things in the past. But yeah, we're really keen to understand things that we might not be considering sufficiently. I mean, so just highlight a few things here, but this is obviously not an exhaustive list, but things like advancing computational modelling that might allow us to evaluate a wider range of input data. Obviously, there's always trade-offs you have to make when modelling some of these things in terms of the level of granularity that you able to include compared to the level of sort of robustness of the outputs that you want to consider, and the the overall time that it might take to complete different model runs. So there's always sort of balances there, and so anything that would allow us to evaluate a greater range of options within a given modeling run is always going to be interesting. And then there's also things like how you might be able to bring together different elements of modeling that we're perhaps doing separately at this stage in terms of economic modeling and geospatial modeling, and how these things could be brought together. But yeah, definitely want to highlight that it's obviously not an exhaustive list. And then just onto the final slide, or final couple of slides. So on hydrogen, I've highlighted that, yeah, there's a real range of uncertainty here around the level of hydrogen demand across some different sectors, but we want to be able to test some of these assumptions, and particularly where there's things that we've got key modelling assumptions that might then impact some of the results of our whole system plans, then the extent to which we can test some of these assumptions and explore the impact of varying them is really important. So highlighted here things like the flexibility of electrolyzers. So what sort of ramp rates might we actually see for electrolyzers, and to what extent does that affect the role that they could play on the electricity system, and what impact does that have on a hydrogen network in terms of varying some of those ramp rates? How much does that change the need for storage playing a role on a hydrogen network? What are the sort of market mechanisms that might be needed to facilitate some of the development of new hydrogen supply and demand, and how should we be considering the integration of hydrogen alongside different energy vectors? And so there's a whole range of things across hydrogen that, because this is a relatively immature area, we haven't got existing networks and sort of extensive physical trials to rely on. These are areas that we're really keen to explore. What can we do in terms of additional modelling? There may be areas where we might not be best placed to partner, but we're really keen to support a range of hydrogen-related projects to ensure that we've got the right information in order to come up with the right whole system approaches for the system. And then onto our last slide. I guess there's some innovation projects we've considered in this area previously, but again, this is an area that we are really keen to explore. So repurposing is a key area that we do need to understand the impacts of. So we're trying to ensure that any hydrogen network is going to be able to be delivered at the best value for consumers, and so that may well involve repurposing if that can be delivered more cheaply than new build. But obviously the wider whole system impact of that does need to be considered, and sort of what impact does that have in terms of removal of assets from the gas network, and indeed if some areas of gas network may need to be decommissioned in future under certain circumstances, what might that look like in practice? How could it be done? What are the costs? These are areas where there are quite big unanswered questions, and in order to make the best whole system decisions, that I think that there's a range of further work that could be done in these areas. And yeah, there are some projects that have already been done in this area, so would definitely suggest that you explore some of these and have a look at work that has already been done, so that any work in this area can build on that rather than just replicating things that have already been considered.
Thank you, Archie. That's it. You're definitely off the hook now. So thank you so much for running through those slides with Simon. That was really, really helpful. So we're going to jump straight into Megan's talk. But before we jump into Megan, just a gentle reminder, get your questions into the Q&A for the Q&A session in the Q&A panel here, not on Slido. We will move them across if you make the mistake, but no worries. We know it can be a bit confusing with Slido having the question wording on it. But yeah, it would be great if you would get your questions in and have a think. We've seen some problem statements already coming in with Slido, so that's really good to see. But Megan, over to you to hear all the work that you have been up to in this space.
Great, thank you. Next slide, please. So I'm Meg McNeil. I'm the lead for Powering Wales Renewably. I also work for NESO as well. And so today I'll be giving you an overview of a project which is addressing sort of the whole system challenge. Next slide. I won't probably go into this too much detail. Simon actually have already introduced NESO very well. Slide 3, please. So PWR, which is another acronym that I'll introduce, is what we call Powering Wales Renewably. It's a 4-year project which was kicked off in January this year. We're now in our beta phase, so we've already completed the discovery and alpha phase. And as the name suggests, our primary focus is the whole of the Welsh energy system. The Welsh Government have really ambitious decarbonisation plans, and in the earlier phases of the project, so in the discovery and the alpha phases, we worked with stakeholders across the industry to identify what the key blockers are for the Welsh energy transition. And I'll talk through these in more detail when I talk through the use cases. But essentially, to remove any barriers to the transition, our focus in PWR is to deliver a digital twin of the whole energy transmission and distribution network across Wales. And it's building on investment in NESO's virtual energy system, as well as SPEN and NGED's innovations in intelligent distribution network models. Next slide, please. So the project consortium in the alpha phase and subsequently this phase is made up of the Welsh Government, CGI, who is our developer partner. We are also working with the renewables developer Cennin, and we're working with the electricity network partners for Wales. Wales has 2 DNOs, so we're working with both SPEN and NGED. But for the beta phase, to truly consider this as a whole energy network view, we've also partnered with National Gas and Wales and West Utility. So we are a really large consortium, but stakeholder engagement in this project isn't just limited to the project partners, and actually is a really crucial part of the successful delivery of PWR. So as I've mentioned, we've already engaged with parties from across the energy industry in the earlier phases, with the wider stakeholders outlined there. But project engagement throughout the next 3.5 years enables us to ensure that we catch all industry requirements. So as the industry develops and sort of hydrogen plans get finalised, we can keep integrating some of those elements into this project. We also want to make sure that we're not duplicating anything that's already been done. I know digital twins aren't new to this industry, so engaging with stakeholders and people across the industry ensures that we're not duplicating what's already been done. And if we are interested in elements that have been done, seeing how we can integrate PWR or vice versa into other digital twins. And we're also wanting to work with stakeholders to kind of educate why we are looking to ingest all of the data that we are, and how that feeds into the requirements of PWR, so that we can fully deliver the solution. And as we continue to develop our use cases, we'll be engaging with other supply chain stakeholders such as PICLO, and other vectors such as Great British Nuclear, and I'm sure many more. And just a plug, if you're interested in PWR and sort of you can see where we might be able to benefit from your data, then please do reach out and let me know. Next slide, please. So what is PWR basically? I've mentioned that we've worked with stakeholders to identify blockers on sort of an energy transition, and through all the engagement that we've had with industry, 3 main challenges were outlined, and I'm sure none of it is new to people on this call. But the first challenge raised is that the whole system visibility. So there was sort of a consensus that there's a lack of visibility, or it's not quite clear across the whole multi-vector energy system around sort of planning and the network status. It was highlighted that it's difficult to compare company-centric disparate data sets across the whole network, and visibility on transmission and distribution coordination is also lacking slightly, and to top that off, existing and accepted connections, it's difficult to see, or a lot of this data is open source data. Many people have gone and looked at the tech register and ingest the tech register and embedded capacity register, but how can we sort of visualize that in one place? And that is what use case 1 is doing. It is the foundation model where we are combining sort of all of the network data, so the electricity network and the gas network, with a connection queue. And as the name suggests, it's also a foundation for delivery of the other use cases, which I'll talk about. So the other challenge that was raised was around flexibility, and that at the moment flexibility is not necessarily treated as a whole system resource. This isn't obviously just for Wales, but the UK generally. So there is the view of transmission and distribution flex coordination isn't as transparent. So use case 2 is like a near real-time representation of flexibility requirements, DER site availability and dispatch, and also looking at how other sort of mediums interact with flexibility, such as A&M, curtailment, storage, and offsetting. And then the third challenge, which feeds into use case 3, Archie's talked a lot around the energy plans and what NESO are doing in that space. But use case 3 is sort of a view of, or how can industry view all of these plans? So the RESP plan, so the local energy plans, as well as the more strategic top level energy plans. How can we view that in one place, and where can we establish any disconnects or gaps? So use case 3 is pulling all of the data from the different planning teams to just sort of outline what work needs to be done there and where there may be gaps. And so next slide, please. So in the alpha phase, we just presented some mock-ups of what I guess the foundation model will look like. So it's also an example of how we're ingesting different types of data. So we've got the Welsh boundaries, the electricity and distribution data. Obviously there are 2 DNOs, so it's about how that connection is visibly seen within Wales, where the DERs are. And we've also overlaid sort of Crown Estate data, transport, so road data, and other Ordnance Survey elements, outlining where sort of areas of outstanding natural beauty are, and anything that sort of interacts and I guess prevents or is considered when strategically planning sort of new generation. So slide 7, please. So as mentioned, PWR is a 4-year project. We launched in January of this year. So far we have released an MVP in July, and then we've released sort of a first release of use case 1 last month. So currently we're in the process of demoing our first release of use case 1. It's at very early stages. We are continuing to build on the foundation model. So as new data comes in, we will be planning on ingesting that. So as Archie talks about, when hydrogen is sort of hydrogen plans are confirmed, we can sort of integrate those into the model. We're also looking at the heat networks around Wales and integrating that sort of information and sort of IDNO data. So we are currently, as I mentioned, doing demos with all project partners, but also other stakeholders that might be interested. And we are looking at, also feeding in to the requirements pieces for use case 3 and 2 on top of that demo. There is obviously a lot to do. We've then prioritized sort of use case 3, so sort of the planning element and how we can view the different plans. First, it's really important to NESO due to sort of where we're at with the RESP teams and sort of our strategic planning. And then use case 2, so the flex coordination is going to be carried out in June 2027. So far, we've not had many sort of data issues or data concerns. We've pulled in mostly open source data at the moment, but as we progress through the project, we we do foresee sort of more data challenges around, potential data quality. This project isn't around necessarily addressing that, but it's sort of highlighting where those sort of challenges may come across. Obviously, all network parties have their own strategic data and their own data strategy. So we're trying to see how we can align them so that we can ingest it into one model. So the last slide, not much longer. So why we're different? Well, we're working with sort of the Welsh government to build on the energy transition plans, and it is, as we're all here, it is a whole system multi-vector approach and visualization. There's one thing I should probably talk around, and that's around BAU. It's part of this project is to sort of consider as we go along with this project how it can be integrated into BAU. We've still got 3.5 years, so I think it's pretty important for us to consider even this early on how we do plan on implementing the project moving forward. So that's me. I hope that was a clear view, but yeah, feel free to ask any questions at the question time. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Meg. Great to see the work that's happening. Again, just a reminder, I'm sure you've got a lot of content and information there to stimulate some questions, so pop them into the Q&A panel. And we're going to jump straight to Ellie, who's joining us from National Gas and is going to give us a gas perspective on some key studies looking at the work currently underway. So over to you, Ellie. Thanks for joining us.
No worries. Hi everyone. As being said, I am Ellie. I'm a Foxy project lead from National Gas. And today I'll be presenting this project as one of the use case or one of the project that is in the alpha delivery at the moment. The project is planned to be finished in the end of January as well. So we in the team are sort of working hard on getting all sort of the technical work done at this stage. Next slide, please. So I would like to start on introducing who is National Gas Transmission. So we are the operator and the owner of the network of high pressure pipelines and compressor that is currently carry the natural gas across the UK. To give you a bit of a sense of scale, so we manage around 5,000 miles of pipelines and more than 60 compressor at 21 sites across the country. So the UK's annual electricity is sort of generated from gas for around like 32%. Our network connects with various sort of points really. So we are connecting with power generation, industry, gas storage sites, distribution businesses, interconnector at Bacton and St. Fergus, and also with different sort of LNG terminal as well. If you would be interested to understand what our operation impact your life, there is quite a lot of breakdown available on our website as well. Next slide, please. Thank you. Sorry, a bit of a transition, so I hope it doesn't take too long. So as we look in the future, reaching to the net zero will require quite a lot of combination of approaches and technologies. So some sector in the UK are quite hard to electrify, so the continued use of natural gas will still have to be there, especially in a combination of carbon capture will be very important as well. We are also looking at greening the existing natural gas by looking at the alternative renewable biogas and synthetic fuels as well. Another key player that we also sort of looking at and probably being mentioned quite a lot already is hydrogen. So whether it's green, blue, or the other type, we will have a really big role in the decarbonisation by using hydrogen. The last but not least is around the electrification. So especially in filling the gap when the renewable is not available, our gas within network can be fed into the power station and generate electricity where it's needed as well. And of course, we are keeping an eye out on the new and sort of emerging technology that could help us reaching the net zero goal in the future. Next slide, please. So yeah, this is just a very quick one. So in the website, we have also got the T3 or real tree strategy across the innovation to give the public the understand exactly on what are we trying or what are we planning to do in the next 5 years. Obviously, the area that is sort of relevant to energy system or whole system is sort of being highlighted in the site right now. But innovation is a heart of what we do. So our project record strategy are all available on our website. And if you have any idea either from this session or from the other sort of ideation session, feel free to reach out to our box email as well. And yeah, one of the theme lead will get back to you based on which area are you sort of aligning with. Yeah. Next, please. Thank you. So yeah, now I just would like to spend some time to really diving on what the FOXY project is, what is a challenge and solution that we are trying to work on. So starting from the challenge then, so yeah, everyone know the future of hydrogen energy in the UK will require a lot of optimal planning and operation, especially in the integrated networks between electricity, hydrogen, and also the other reserve and interconnection as well. This is quite a complex challenge. We need a sort of quite much greater coordination between this network, especially when it comes to storage, import, and also export decisions. The integrated energy system has been studied quite extensively in the past years and years, and models have been developed to support all this infrastructure investment plan, policy, and also operational strategy as well. There is quite a lot of model being gathered across the hydrogen ecosystem. But in order to proving that each sort of planning scenario is actually realistically operable, that is still a gap out there. So yeah, like that is some challenge. For example, like the physical constraint or the technical constraint within our own system, especially in the transmission system right now, that hasn't been considered. And in order to actually incorporate those in is really challenging. So we have to consider what is the interaction across the gas regulations, the different regions, the times of the day and the times of the year where hydrogen is going to be in the system, in order to really understand on, okay, we can install this much infrastructure, but how can we make sure that it actually can be operated in the future? Yeah, and obviously if we fail to discount or account this complexity, the energy industry could seriously underestimate the challenge of operating an integrated system, the assets that is actually required to maintain the energy resilience, and the investment and operational costs that we'll need to have when the hydrogen has come into the system in the future. So as part of this project, the FOXY is going to be developing the integrated hierarchical sort of network modeling framework by really stimulate the operation of future energy system scenario with a highly interconnected gas and power networks that we are going to have in the future. We are really putting a strong emphasis on the realistic modeling of power to gas and the storage operator behavior, and we will demonstrate this integrated model in sort of the simulation work that we're going to be doing in the alpha phase of the study. Next slide, please. Yes, so let's look at the components of the integrated energy system that we are looking at in this project. So as you can see, there is quite a lot of piece of jigsaw being put together in the hydrogen ecosystem. But what we are focusing in the alpha phase is really on the highlight, the yellow highlight box that sort of being shown in the slide. So yeah, we are currently prioritizing the future system that include renewable energy source, electricity transmission and distribution, electrolyzer, compressor, hydrogen developer, and down across the hydrogen infrastructure itself. A key feature that is really the novel bit of this project is there is quite a lot of work already that looking at power to gas. So looking at, okay, starting from curtail electricity generation down to electrolyzer and then transport to the hydrogen customer. But what we are going to be looking at really is another way around. So we're going to be looking at how about if we start from what is the capacity that's available, or what is sort of the readiness of the system of gas transportation right now, and then looking sort of back as a feedback loop to the electricity infrastructure and see how it actually react to each other. So yeah, this feedback loop will really add the sort of substantial complexity into the system operation, as a decision in one part of the system can be a ripple effect throughout the network. And yeah, I mean, even though this is sort of the operational whole system modeling, the key benefit of this project is really to be fed into the existing plan or existing operational strategy, and to really identify exactly on what is the perspective in planning that the developer will potentially need to double check with the gas side of things first on whether this can be operated or not, and how can we sort of maintain the flexibility across the energy system. Next slide, please. Yes, so to make this quite concrete, I am picking up like a couple of use cases that has been considered in the project. So the first one then is, yeah, around if you are imagining today we have quite a low hydrogen storage level, the forecast said, okay, tomorrow that's going to be a sufficient renewable for the system. However, the long-term weather forecast said, oh, but it's going to be really, really cold. The question that we're trying to ask in the project is, what do we do to maintain an operating reserve? While the electricity is saying, all right, we need to understand how much hydrogen should be used for the next day to warm our hydrogen turbine for the electricity generation. The gas might have the same question, all right, but how much hydrogen we can store for winter? And the answer of these two questions is going to be different, but how can we make sure that these two answers are also going to sort of work out with each other as well between electricity and gas system? In another scenario is, yeah, another way around. If today we have a very little renewable generation, but there's so much hydrogen in the system, and tomorrow we also expect a plenty of renewable as well, how are we going to best prepare the system for the next day? So the gas might be saying, all right, let's use hydrogen today to operate compressor and move hydrogen into the storage. But the electricity might say, all right, we can keep hydrogen in the system, is fine. And we can also restrict the hydrogen generation from the curtail energy as well. But do you need this? Do you need us to store the electricity for the day after even, or what are we going to be doing with this reserve of electricity generation? So yeah, I think these two cases really highlight the importance of day ahead preparation, using hydrogen reserve, and the strategic decision making around the operational strategy as well. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this should be the last one now. So yeah, looking ahead, Foxy Roadmap start with alpha phase that we are going to be developing a simplified mathematical model to analyze the risk that is currently being shared between electricity and gas sector. But in the beta phase, we also going to be developing the advanced modeling framework and start building the API in there to tailor of the technical specification in the various network licensing. This API will be integrated into existing planning, serving as a strategic bridge between electricity and gas planning in the future as well. And yeah, after the beta, we're going to be looking at how is it actually going to be integrated into our existing operating system. And yeah, getting prepared on how is it going to be rolled out in the future when the hydrogen is in place. Yeah, and if you're interested to be involved in the project and feel like you are one of the part of this hydrogen system map that I have shown previously, please feel free to reach out, and I'm more than happy to answer any question afterward as well. Yeah, and I think that's all for me. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Ali. And with an acronym like FOXY, I don't know how you wouldn't want to get involved in this amazing work. And it's really good to see what you are doing, and obviously the challenges that you have to overcome, because there are a lot. So with that, we're going to jump straight to Sarah now, who's at UKPN, who's going to give us another case study. And Sarah, over to you to run us through that.
Yep, I'm Sarah Galobish, an Innovation Project Manager at UK Power Networks, and this is our Indus 2.0 project. This project looks to bridge a gap in current network forecasting to better account for industrial process energy use. We're doing this by enabling data sharing between GDNs and DNOs to unlock a better picture of energy use at the site level. This is a single-year NIA-funded project which builds on previous SIF-funded work. UK Power Networks has partnered with SGN and NISO for this project alongside our delivery partner Guidehouse. So next slide, please. The crux of the problem tackled by this project is that industrial energy demand accounts for 17% of total UK carbon emissions, and most of this demand is for process heat, which is not currently accounted for in the forecasting done by many networks. This means that this is a significant decarbonisation opportunity, but we have little understanding of how it will impact our energy system. There's also limited coordination between GDNs and DNOs in our planning and assumptions, despite the fact that we're all working towards the same net zero future. In terms of our objectives for this project, we're looking to do 3 key things. We'll develop data sharing agreements between DNOs and GDNs to share site-level data on industrials. We'll then use that data to model typical decarbonisation routes for a range of industrial subsectors, including those on the right-hand side of the slide. And finally, we'll look to identify ways to make sure this solution can be taken on by other interested networks across GB. Next slide, please. So for this project, working across the energy system has been really critical for 3 reasons. So first, it improves forecasting. Sharing data between organizations is allowing us to unlock value from data which has less value in silos. This will allow us to model on a per-site basis how industrials are likely to decarbonize. Second, it enables both electricity and gas networks to better facilitate the decarbonization of industry by allowing us to have sight of the potential scale of industrial demand on our networks into the future. Finally, planning to aligned assumptions ensures that investment is aligned across gas and electricity, and that we're each investing where it's needed most. The next slide provides an overview of kind of what we're working on within the project. So in terms of what we've done to date, it's pretty much the first half of the bullets on this slide. We're roughly 6 months into the project. We started with a bit of requirements gathering to understand the different forecasting approaches across SGN, UKPN, and NISO. We then worked on a data sharing agreement to share the project data between partners and developed an IT solution to facilitate that sharing. We're also now ready to essentially press go and actually share that data, which is really exciting. So in terms of what's next, we're getting into the real meat of the project now to actually do the matching of the sites between our data sets and to start to build our assumptions around industrial decarbonization. We'll then look to validate those assumptions with industry before producing our initial results in early 2026. And the next slide just gives a little bit of a flavor of what we've uncovered so far. So from an analysis of the publicly available data on industry across the SGN and UKPN license areas, we've been able to identify kind of a broad range of sites on our networks. So on the map, the darker gray area is the intersection between UKPN and SGN's license areas. And as you can see, it's got a high concentration of brickworks with some paper and printing sites, which are the blue dots, and then the kind of pinky mauvey red on the map. And this is kind of represented by the bottom bar chart on the slide as well. So then when looking across UKPN, which is the entire gray shaded area, we see that we have a higher concentration of food and drink and chemical sites, which kind of could be harder to model in the long term, given the low share of these sites in the overlapping focus area where we're sharing the data. So these are the purple and brown sites, and the kind of totals are in the top bar on the chart. A final, somewhat interesting point to note here is that the data here is for the largest sites, which are known as point sources, but the modeling in INDIS will go beyond these sources to also capture the decarbonisation of smaller sites, which are often much harder to model and aren't captured in things like NZIP. So the access to the data that both the gas networks and the electricity networks hold is allowing us to actually unlock a more granular modeling that we wouldn't have been able to without this collaboration. And unfortunately, that's all I can share at the moment in terms of insights, but we're hoping to have a bit more for you in early 2026. And the next and final slides provide some ways that you can get information on this project or any of our innovation projects, which you can do by emailing our innovation mailbox or looking at our website. And I'll be happy to take any questions in the Q&A. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Sarah. And you presented that like it was limited insights, but I think you gave us a lot. So great to see that the project is already well underway in delivering. And so we're going to ask all of our speakers to just come online, en masse, on camera. And we're going to dive into some of the questions we got. We haven't gotten a lot, so the challenge is back to you in the audience to give us some of the questions that you may have for speakers. I know that Joe has just left an answer for one of the questions on partnering, and we had a forwarded question and statement as well, looking at data from the Welsh energy system model that may be of interest. We can't, I think we can, Meg, probably get that link. It's, could you please share a link to the open source data specifically for use case 1 visualization needs? I don't know if that's possible for us to share eventually.
So the open source data that we've gathered so far from all the different DNOs, so they've got their open data portal, which you can go to and download data. In terms of what we're ingesting into PWR, we're actually just demoing at the moment within stakeholders the immediate, not just partners, but sort of immediate interest in the project. And if any, I appreciate I don't have my email address anywhere, but if you do want to see sort of a demo and we think it's useful, then just let me know and we can schedule that in. But I can't provide a link at the moment.
Sorry, Meg. Thanks for clarifying.
I'm pretty much interested. Thank you. I'll reach out to you. Thank you.
We have another question that is probably for the NISO team in general. It says, may I know what the timeline would be like for the SSEP, the RESP, and the CSNP? I don't know how you break down that question, because I'm sure there's a lot to handle there, but Archie, I see you're ready to tackle it.
Yeah, so yeah, in short, the SSEP will be published at the end of 2026, and the RESP and CSNP are due to be published at the end of 2027. So yeah, the SSEPs and the modelling is ongoing, and they're sort of appraising their pathway options at the moment, and then we'll be consulting on those pathways next year before refining and then publishing them. The CSNP and RESP are at an earlier stage in terms of defining their methodology before getting started on the modelling next year.
Thanks, Archie. Maybe another question for you. We got one on Slido that says, do any of your models include deep geothermal? They've shared a link that the audience members can use to sort of better understand the enhanced geothermal space in the systems. But yeah, just a quick question on, is geothermal represented to some degree within the modelling?
So I believe it should be included within the SSEP in terms of an electricity supply technology. it is including sort of a wide breadth of potential technologies. Obviously, I suppose for geothermal, there are sort of non-electricity uses for geothermal in terms of just providing heat. I think the RESPs should be trying to consider potential options within some of the local intelligence that would inform potential use of heat networks. But yeah, I think would encourage people to reach out to our RESP team in particular related to sort of specific local geothermal projects and the potential within specific regions to ensure that could be accommodated there.
Thanks, Archie. And we had another question. This one asked if we can get the slides. Yes, the slides will be shared. Also, what events exist for physical networking and consortium building? Do NISO see the importance of this, given the scale of changes and opportunities that are finally opening up since they have been established?
I can vaguely cover that one. I might bring in Lauren as well, who's one of our business partners who deals a lot on the sort of incoming opportunities. So yeah, there are a couple of opportunities to do that in terms of formal networking. So timing probably needs to be thought about in terms of like what that looks like. But we do open calls on a regular basis, so keep your eyes out for that. And again, a lot of the open calls that we'll be releasing will be linked to sort of the priorities or the challenges that I've mentioned recently. There's also an annual base camp, which is sort of geared up for that as well, around sort of specific challenge areas that NISO are looking at, which, Lauren, if you are on, you might remember the timescales better than I. But those would be the two ones that exist currently. And then I guess in terms of just the wider point just around idea submission is we've got sort of information on the website in terms of how you can submit ideas. So there's sort of a lot of different forms and ways in which we'll sort of take and gratefully receive sort of any interests from, I say, whether that's a consortium or whether that's an individual in terms of ideas that we need to consider.
Thanks so much, Simon. I had a whole list of questions for you, but I think I'm going to give you an easy time. When I say you, I mean all of you, not just Simon, don't worry. But I think as we're a bit pressed with time, maybe what the one overarching question I'll present to all of you, the speakers, is, there's a lot of work going on, and obviously coordination is quite key. We have a lot of agents. There's a lot of modeling that needs to be done to sort of represent a very complex system in a sort of meaningful way. But what are some of the key innovation challenges, and be as specific as you can be, that you see cropping up over and over and over that perhaps we're just not getting a hold of quickly enough? I don't know if you had any thoughts on that, either through the case studies that you've seen or the wider system coordination. But if you just had that one area that is at the back of your mind that keeps you up at night, that you really like, if I got some money, I'll throw it at that. What is that space for any of you? Feel free to tackle. I know it was a very loaded question. Break it down as you see fit. Oh, Meg, I see you coming on. Potentially,
yeah,
yes, there we go.
I'd go first. I don't think it's necessarily a problem, but it's something that is does come up. Is that all? Yeah, I think I've mentioned it in the slides. Is that all networks have their own sort of data strategy, and so when you're modeling and you're ingesting different types of network data, when it's all different, it's quite it can be a challenge. I think that's something that the industry is already aware of and is trying to work towards, but it's definitely something that's come up in PWR, and I'm sure will do as we continue with the project.
Yeah, interoperability is definitely a big one as we sort of come together and hold hands on these challenges. Sarah, I think you're coming on it.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to echo that and say that we've come up a lot against the same thing in the Indus project, and so kind of really interested in the work that NISO is doing on the data sharing infrastructure, the DSI, another SIF-funded general initiative that I think will be kind of a big milestone in unlocking some of this data across different networks. Just a common way of communicating would be a massive help.
Yeah. Ellie, I'm going to specifically pick on you because I know you're in a complex space, so you must have something that's keeping you up at night with this.
Yes, well, so first thing first, just to sort of follow up on Sarah's idea, yeah, I do agree. There is a lot of work on the design already, and yeah, it potentially going to be around um the 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 data sort of sharing standard as well. So if the whole energy system is going to be sharing the information together in the future, how can we make sure that the unit of the data from gas side is going to be the same with electricity side, and how are we going to make sure that we are going to be gathering the information in the same standard where it can be easily like inter-exchange to each other. From the gas point of view, I think I don't want to say it's more like a challenge really. Obviously, we know where we're gonna get to at the net zero. We know where we are right now, but I think we would like to understand really about what is going on the way that we are getting there, like why that is a reducing amount of natural gas in the system. There's more amount of green gases in the system. How we tackle with that resilience. If there's going to be one day a new gas coming into the system, how can we make sure that we are ready to operate that? We are keeping up with the sort of the alternative fuel that is going to be put into the system and those sort of things. So yeah, I think it's about like where we get into in 2030, 2035, and 2040, really, because we know where we're going to be getting at the end. We are just working really hard on understand on how we're going to get there, what is the roadmap. We need to be working with each other, and those sort of element that is quite critical for our transition.
Thanks, Sally. Archie and Simon, any final groundbreaking insights you want to give us as we close out the Q&A session? No pressure.
I think I just echo that previous point around the practicalities of the transition. So yeah, it's all very well sort of modeling a sort of endpoint and going, look at this future system that's going to work brilliantly, but the practicalities of the transition are a real challenge. And so yeah, I guess particularly where we've got things like repurposing or consumers switching to hydrogen even without repurposing, sort of what does the practicality of that transition look like? And for say large industrial consumers, if they may require sort of a dual hydrogen and natural gas connection for a period of time to give them confidence to switch, sort of what would the practicalities be of delivering that? How does that fit in with an overall network plan? And so I think there's a whole range of sort of details that are really important to consider and explore and understand, I suppose, both consumer appetite, impact on security of supply, and all of these sort of really important challenges that are going to cause us issues along the way.
Thanks, Archie.
I'll just echo that one if I can, in terms of just a broader point of, there's not just a clean power transition here that's a challenge. There's not just a net zero challenge here that's an issue. There's also an economic challenge that sits within the UK currently, and thinking about how those things interlinked in this sort of whole systems challenge is a key component about how do you think about how customers are transitioning, but how do you do that in the most sort of cost-effective way possible, and how do you be sort of a supporter or an enabler for growth for industries is just such a key thing. And I think using this challenge area as a way of starting to explore solutions and explore what that transition looks like just feels very important to me.
Well, you've heard it all from the speakers here. This is easy peasy work. Let's all get to it. There's not much left to do. Obviously, that is sarcasm aside. Thank you so much, speakers, for joining us, taking your time out of your busy schedules to share some of these insights. It's been really, really helpful. I'm sure there are going to be other questions. We'll love to connect you to the audience members as well. But yes, there's a lot to do. There's a lot of innovation that can solve some of these challenges. So thank you for telling us a little bit more of how we can. We're going to move on to the next section, which is just a quick forward look, and to say that obviously we are now starting to wrap up the ideation part of the SIF program. We have a workshop that is going to be coming up on the 9th of October, where we're feeding the ideas that you're currently giving us on Slido. Thank you very much. We're going to be translating that, clustering them up, sort of prioritizing to see where exactly we should have some key focal areas. That's not to say that ideas will not be looked at in other ways. We try to capture all ideas as much as possible, but in the workshop where we're trying to have a priority focus on some key areas, we're going to filter those through, and that will be the workshop on the 9th, and you can join us there for that, where we get a deeper dive conversation to tackle some of these and get some ideas on paper where we can then form consortia around and move forward with innovation. Next slide, please. I think I covered this off given time, so we can go to the next slide. And so again, this is a Slido code. So let's just jump over and see what has been placed on Slido for those of you who have. If you've missed this slide before, we've put it into the Q&A that you can use these links for. So I'll just go to the next slide, which should load the Slido. And I don't think it is. So let's go, sorry, to the next slide again. Point being is that we've seen that some problem statements have come in. That has been really, really helpful. We will keep the Slido open after the webinar, so feel free to jump in and still put your problem statements. And again, a problem statement is, where do you see focus should be placed where public funding interventions are concerned, or where you think that the dial is not moving fast enough and we need to de-risk and we need to put some more innovation pressure, as it were, in these spaces. So again, what we will do is we will take these ideas and problem statements and translate them into the workshop. If you see an idea that's already there and somebody's already stolen your idea, don't get too worried. Just give it an upvote. The more upvotes that you have is a better understanding that we can have around the priorities. We also have this QR code here that if you want to have some interest in the workshop, feel free to scan that, and then you can take it to the registration page. And then in the next slide, which I believe we will hand over to you, Joe, just to touch on some of the resources that people can learn where SIF is concerned.
Yeah, thanks very much, Masao. So in short, there's a lot of ways to engage with the SIF team here at Innovate UK. We, as Masao mentioned, we've been doing ideation events under round 5 since around April time of this year. So we've got, this is our 5th webinar in that series, and the previous 4 under challenges 1, 3, 4, and 6 you can see on our YouTube channel playlist, where we've been getting traction from innovators and other third parties. So you can watch those recordings to learn about those if they're of interest. Our newsletter is best place to hear about stuff that's going on in the SIF, what's coming up. And I suppose, a reflection on the from the last question that Sal posed, the Q&A, there's a lot of innovation projects funded through the SIF and NIA. So we've got our directory, second link from the bottom there, where you can see everything that SIF's funded. That's updated regularly with the most up-to-date list of projects. And I think if you're a third party and a new entrant to the SIF, of which we've got many engaging with us across this webinar and workshop series, we've had lots of people that hadn't engaged with SIF before. One nugget of advice is think about how you're leveraging learning from previous projects and you are complementary to and not duplicating with other things that are being done. It really helps to position that of why it's innovative, why it's novel. So if you want to discuss ideas with the SIF team, we've got our expression of interest in the bottom right. I would encourage you to, if you've got an idea and it's maybe a nugget of something, not quite ready to take to a network yet, we are happy to chat that through with you, think about any other relevant projects in the SIF, and what are some of the key barriers that you see to engaging with the networks or the SIF, and how we can maybe help solve that for you. So lots of resources on the slides. We'll be sharing this later on, and also we've heard from 3 of the case studies in the portfolio under this challenge, or relevant to this challenge today. Off the back of this, we'll be also providing a number of international case studies in whole systems, cross-vector, multi-vector thinking, as well as a number of other GB case studies that we've got in the SIF portfolio and also in the NIA space. So there'll be extra resources beyond the 3 case studies we heard from today around what you can leverage, some of the key learnings and insights from those. And I think next slide is our last one with a thank you, and ask for feedback on these events. We've had feedback forms and all these events, and I've been getting loads of responses. So it is encouraged if you've got feedback on the webinar or our events, do let us know through the QR code. And I think I'm closing us off there, so if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, you are. Thank you so much, Joe. Thank you again to all of the speakers for joining us, and obviously to you coming on to learn how we can sort of push the innovation in this space and create some whole system optimization. So thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your week, and we look forward to seeing some of you at the workshop. Bye.